On today's five-star flex, I am headed to the Bayou. That's right. I'm going to talk about LSU football and how everybody is kind of sleeping on the number 3 recruiting class in the country. But how? And how is LSU flying under the radar with all of these five stars? We're going to talk about it today with Shea Dixon of On Three's Bengal Tiger, and we also have Harry Berry, the father of five-star running back Harlem Berry, today on the five-star flex. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Let's go. The LSU Tigers have the number 3 class in the country, and nobody is talking about it. So to fix that, I brought my man Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger on 3 here live on the five-star flex. Shea, what's going on?
5-star flex, my first appearance.
Oh man, hey, I'm so excited. Now listen, we hear about Ohio State's class. We heard about Bama. Recently, we've even been hearing about Auburn. But LSU is just sitting at number 3, just cruising. Why is this class so underrated?
That's the goal. Lay low, I think. Put it together. I think one thing is they put it together over time, right? There was no massive wave where 15 guys all committed and they took this, that stole the headlines for a month. It was Bryce Underwood and Harlem Berry, 2 5-stars in January. Then you start to put more pieces together and you look up and through March and April and May and June, they had grabbed 2 of the top 5 linemen in the country. They had locked down the state in a number of places. They had grabbed more top 100 guys. They had jumped on a guy like CJ Ross, who wasn't even ranked by people other than on 3. Now he's a top 100 player coming out of North Shore in Houston. So it's one of those things where they've done well to both get really quality, but also address needs and do it over a stretch or a period of time where not at one point was it, oh, look, LSU's run off, 5-6 commits in a row. And while other teams have. Now, I think that you'll take it either way, but that's kind of how LSU's been able to lay low. And they went to 1 when Bryce and Harlem committed, and then Ohio State and Bama made surges, and they dropped to 2 and 3, but they've never dropped out of the top 5, and they haven't been out of the top 3 in months. And
wow.
Look, Dukes with 26 commits, they're not taking that many more. They're in a spot now where Brian Kelly's always said, I want 25 to 30 commits. So a handful more of guys will get on board. But all of your big targets, for the most part, are in the rear view. And you landed a bunch, you missed on some. That's recruiting. I think they feel great, though, about where they're at. And we can talk more about it because I know this is how fan bases are. When you lose a game or 2, what does it mean? I'm the type who says, and to even lead into this conversation, but I've got other thoughts, that people forget that, and not former athletes. I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about fans, even like myself. I didn't play high school football, but I talk to enough of them and I follow it. Losing a game isn't like it is for the fans where, oh, the season's over. We should be a playoff team. We're not going to be in it all this. Why? Because minus 1 or 2 of guys in each class, they lose a game every other week or every 3 weeks, and they get it. And what do they say? My team's horrible? No, they say, well, if we would have done this or that or this, we would have won that game. Like, we just played bad. It's something. If we would have had our quarterback, he was injured, he didn't play. They don't view it through that lens. So I don't think that I love every year I could say I could poll LSU's class top to bottom and say, what was their final record? More than half the class wouldn't even know how many games they played for you to be able to put together that record. So I think way far more often than not, kids are just focused on position coach, fit at the school, how much I like the school, what's my playing time going to look like? Now with NIL, what does that look like? And when you pick a school, you're more often than not comfortable with it. And look, LSU, more than 40% of their class last year were flips. I think this time around, they said, let's get it all done. They did. You entered the season when high school and college, 26 commits, a top 3 class, and not too far off from the early signing period. And guys like Harlem Berry and guys like Bryce, let's just say Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in America, has not stepped foot on another campus in a recruiting capacity since he committed to LSU. We asked him why. You were there you talked to him and his father at On3 Elite, and they said, because we made our decision. We visited those schools, and this is our word, and we're sticking to it.
So even after those games, let's say you have a mercurial prospect who gets up and down and, oh my God, LSU lost the game. All right. the total opposite of a Bryce or a Harlem. What does that coaching staff say to that player in order to kind of ease their concerns coming off of a loss to USC?
I think you often just stay the course, is what the coaches say, and that is pick your poison. A guy like DJ Pickett. He's been at he's been at Miami now. He went to the Florida game, but he's committed to LSU, right? And everyone says, well, his cousin's at Miami now, and yeah, he's going to see him play, but his other cousin's now getting on 3 RPM to Miami, and Miami's pushing him hard and all that. I'm not saying with certainty that he's signing with LSU, but I am saying with certainty that a month ago when he had a chance to commit to Miami, he didn't. And he knew his cousin was already on the team, and he knows where his other cousin is going to go to college too. Right. So it's about fit. He said, I want to go play at LSU because Corey Raymond's there. He's developed DBUs. They've gone on to the league and had long careers. Then also you say, let's say they lose some games this year. If they lose games this year, it ain't because of the offense. It's because they tried to portal their way out of a DB hole for 2 years in a row and had to fire an entire defensive staff. So you're telling DJ Pickett, look, we need you more than ever. We need you more than even when you committed, if that's how bad the DB room or corner room still is. And same for Cade Phillips at corner. And then Bo Davis went and got a bunch of D tackles. If they lose some games, these guys picked LSU over Texas and other schools who are playing quite well, obviously. Then you point and say, our biggest needs D tackle. You guys are coming in to play early. So for me, I think it's just one of those things where, again, stay the course. They committed for a reason. You pitched them on this plan of where they fit in, how they'd be used, and losing games along the way probably only reinforces that more than anything of, hey, this is why we need you because of this. We lack this area and you're going to help us there. So I'll say that. I'll also say this, Dukes, and this, I think it's more important for fans to know this. Not in the NIL era. That's overshadowed the portal era for me in a way. I've talked to a lot of coaches, and LSU set up really well here compared to, and this is what's been impressive about Hugh Freeze and them, compared to an Auburn, let's say. If you're at Auburn, you got to recruit Bama against Bama in state, and any Georgia recruiting you're recruiting not against just Georgia, but Florida, Florida State, Miami, everybody's in Atlanta and across Georgia recruiting. LSU has a built-in advantage where nobody else is in state. Tulane isn't taking LSU's players. So they've got a tried and true system. Recruit East Texas, recruit South Mississippi, recruit Arkansas if there's players, recruit the border states, lock down Louisiana, which per capita produces more NFL players than any other state in the country, and then spot recruit. Go to Michigan and get Bryce Underwood. Go to Florida and get athletic guys like DJ Pickett at DB. And that's what they've done. So, but what I will say is in the transfer portal era, Dukes, these are kids. They get homesick. They want mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle, my coach, whoever, to be at my games when they're home games. Even if I don't play, even if I'm a freshman who I just want them to see me run out of the tunnel, do all that. LSU says we like guys who are 7 hours away. That means they can get in a car and drive there. If you get a little homesick, mom can get in the car and be there by nighttime. Auburn and LSU are the two schools you look at right now, and the average distance from that player, your commitments, hometown, to your campus, LSU's 367 miles, Auburn's 225. You look at schools like Oregon, 1,300 miles for their average guy. You look at Texas, they're at nearly 500. You look at Alabama, they're at 800. We know they're doing a lot of out-of-state recruiting right now.
Right.
But I think that if you build teams, Hugh Freeze is doing this, LSU's doing this, where you're keeping it within driving distance, you're seeing a lot less of those guys say, well, I'm not playing. I might as well just go back somewhere closer to home because not only will I play, but my folks get to see me. I get to go home on the weekends, whatever it is. I think that's the smart approach in the portal era is, hey, if you're down in the Southeast, recruit the pockets of it that you feel good about, because when you get those kids on campus, Auburn being the best example you can give right now. And look, Bryce Underwood kind of from being from Michigan, if he weren't committed, which he is, and you don't want him not to be committed,
right?
And he plans to sign, you take him off, and these numbers look pretty similar.
Right.
Auburn being 225 miles, you're making that drive. If you call your mom in the morning, she's there at lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a big thing for me in the portal era that these coaches talk about of we're losing kids who are just from too far away. And if
Mhm.
they don't play right away, or if they don't see a path to playing within a couple of years, they're leaving for not just that reason, but this other reason of, well, I'm not even close. If I'm not going to play, at least I better go somewhere close to home. At least I could see families. So I think
Right.
that's one of the most overlooked things in the portal era.
That's a great answer, and it's something I hadn't really considered before. So, John Emery out, senior running back out with a season-ending injury. That makes the commitment of Harlem Berry that much more important. Is there another room on LSU's current roster that you see that they've really helped themselves with their commitment class or the class that they have committed right now?
Yeah, and look, it's crazy from the Les Miles era to now, where we're talking casually about LSU winning two Heisman's at quarterback. And you look up right now, and Garrett Nussmeier has more completions and passing touchdowns than anyone in America. LSU fans would have killed for that in the Les Miles days when, yeah, you ran for 250, 300 a game, but you were throwing it for 60 yards or
Right.
something. So we've got a bit of the inverse. LSU has not run the ball extremely well to start the year, and Jaden Daniels was their runner the prior 2 years. Nothing wrong with that, but you've got to find a way to run the football. I think boosting the running back room, and look, JT Lindsey, another Louisiana kid, I think ultimately will give them two top 10 backs. So
Mhm.
on offense, you wanted a little boost in the running back room. They've got it. I think the focus has been on defense, Dukes, and it's DT, which there's not
Mhm.
a lot of out there, which makes it a premium position,
Right.
and corner. They've got some good young safeties. They've just got to develop them. Corner, they had to dig themselves out of a hole and really got their backs up against the wall where they went portal heavy. And yet it paid off for them year one when they got a couple of guys that no other SEC fan would even know their names, Mekhi Garner, Jarrett Bernard Converse, and that came in here and really bailed them out and started games and played well. But those were guys coming from Oklahoma State and coming from Mekhi Garner, UL after playing at JUCO. Uh, Now you've got Pickett. Now you've got a guy like Aiden Anding who is going to make a run at being the best corner in Louisiana with him and Jabori Antoine. And then you've got a massive addition that they flipped from Texas and Cade Phillips.
Mhm.
Helps on the way at corner. And you've already got a young crew right now with PJ Woodland, Ashton Stamps. Corey Raymond knows how to develop guys. He's just got to get guys. And they did. They've got guys. So sign them. You're good there. And then DT, Bo Davis, comes home from Texas back to his
Yeah.
alma mater, and immediately just all the kids he was recruiting to Texas are in LSU's class right now. He flipped
Right.
Brandon Brown from Texas, and then Zion Williams out of Lufkin got him on board. Um, Recently, Buddy Mathis out of Georgia, who had a ton of offers. He'll be a nose tackle. That was the one room. And you mentioned Guillory being hurt. Guillory is sort of the end of the era. After that, they were really short on DTs. They went transfer portal hunting and took a couple of guys out of Wisconsin and Grand Valley State. You don't want to have to rely on the portal. Every coach will. I'm not saying go Dabo here. I'm saying every coach is willing to go to the portal to fix your needs, right? And you'll never turn away a Jaden Daniels if Jaden Daniels is saying, "Hey, I'm ready to come in," and you think you can develop him into what he became. But you want to hit on the Bryce Underwoods. You want to hit on the high school guys that you can develop. And when you do that year over year, you go portal hunting less and less because you
Mhm.
don't have holes. So I think the two big things for me beyond running back on offense would be DT and corner, and they've already hit them both. They've got 3 commits at corner and 4 at DT.
I love the point you made about being able to develop that high school talent without portal hunting, because that's where you build your culture. The guys who have been there, like you can almost look at some guys, especially if they're grad transfers in the portal. They're basically like mercenaries coming in.
1
Hey,
year rental.
yep, 1 year rental. You come in. I gotta have it this year. And sometimes if it's a guy who's cool in the locker room because he's an older guy, but he's not playing, he could become a cancer instantly if your culture isn't set up for that. So no, I think that was a great point. So going forward, got a big game against South Carolina, where South Carolina, I'm sure at the beginning of the season, that wasn't a game that was circled as kind of a teetering point in your season. Because now South Carolina just come off a huge victory against Kentucky, where they were heavily a underdog, and after already having a loss to USC, this ends up being a big game. What does LSU have to do to beat the Gamecocks?
I think one thing LSU fans want to see them establish a run. Don't tune in this weekend then, because I think they're going to try to throw the ball all over South Carolina, and they've done well at throwing it. Like, people say, well, they should have run it all over Nichols, and Brian Kelly said Nichols was putting 8 men in the box. Like, there were 7 plays. He said they only ran 60 plays. Nichols did great at ball control, which
Mhm.
is their best strategy in a game like that. But that they would put 7, 8 in the box, and he said there were 7 run plays that Nuss checked out of at the line to a pass play that ended up working. So as he said, if South Carolina comes out with 2 deep safeties and they're putting 3 down linemen, then we'll run the ball and we'll see how good we are at running it. But that's not the expectation given the pass rushers they have. And because of that, I think that LSU, who's been excellent in pass protection, they do have 2 of the best tackles in America, that Nuss hasn't had they haven't given up a sack this year. So
Right.
I'm not saying that continues against Dylan Stewart and company, but this isn't a Swiss cheese O line. I think Kentucky got manhandled there.
Yeah.
You're right that this becomes a must-win game. I think LSU's probably thankful that this game's at 11 a.m. and not at 7 p.m. at night there at South Carolina, when everyone's got all day to get kind of hype for it. And
Right.
again, I think any South Carolina fan will tell you they feel like they're the most polarizing team in college football. They can go out and should have lost to Old Dominion, and then the next week be a 10-point underdog to Kentucky and handle them in a game
Yeah.
that ultimately turned out to really not be that close in the second half. I still wonder, with Lenore Sellers, who I love as a prospect, he's young, Dukes. Like, he
Right.
can run it. You got to bring him down in the open field. And Robbie Ashford came in for some plays, but he's healthy. Lenore's is healthy. He'll run the football. He's run it as much as he's thrown it this year, and he's thrown it for 50% completion. You want to be in the 70s. So even with LSU struggling in the pass defense department, which they have,
Right.
I don't think that a guy like Lenore Sellers, he ain't going to do what some of these other Jackson Dart and a lot of other guys waiting on your schedule can do to you in the past games. So,
Right.
yes, this is kind of a must-win spot for LSU, but I think that they know it. And remember, they lost the season opener to Florida State 2 times in a row. Then they went 9-1 and 6-1 across the
Right.
next games. And yes, you don't have Jaden, but Garrett looks pretty good, and not every
Man.
team's created equal anyways. So the other teams you play are different than they were those years. I think that losing that first game puts that razor thin margin onto LSU to the point where Kelly, or at least the players, realize, all right, we can maybe lose one more. That's it to make the playoffs. And they
Mhm.
finished with back-to-back 10-win seasons, but didn't make a New Year's Six Bowl even. So they want 10 wins in the regular season. They want to ensure that they can get into the playoffs, or, what would have been a New Year's Six Bowl at the time. Now it's the playoffs. That's the goal. They know it's such a thin margin for error moving forward that I think that dials them in a bit more.
So I haven't got to see a whole lot. I didn't see a lot of the Nickel State game, but what's your opinion on the way that they're using Harold Perkins? And are we going to see him be flexed out in the pass rush just as much as we are seeing him standing up? I mean, in the future.
It's one of the burning questions. I mean, it seems like so long ago. That Arkansas game was freshman year, where he basically single-handedly won the game for LSU. I mean, he was doing everything. But people have to remember, this offseason, Harold Perkins was on record with all of us in the media and said, my feedback from not just my coaches, like pro scouts, is I need film at linebacker. And people just say very throughout, Micah Parsons. I would just let him be Micah Parsons. Well, he's not Micah Parsons. He's built different than Micah Parsons. He's a great athlete, but they need to see linebacker film. And they've worked really hard this offseason with him on it. Blake Baker, LSU's DC, is a linebackers coach. He's an excellent one. He took a bad Missouri defense, and in his only 2 years there, they were top 40 both years in total defense. So he knows how to get the most out of guys. I don't think that Blake Baker doesn't know what he's doing. I don't think that Harold Perkins is a bad athlete. I think they're just trying to find the marriage here. Dukes, I'll flip it on you because I want your opinion here. This is what LSU fans have asked me. I've got my opinion. People say, okay, well, that's great. The NFL is telling Harold Perkins this. But if it's a detriment to the team, if he's better at just putting him at edge and let him run, and that's all he does, and it benefits LSU, but it doesn't benefit Harold Perkins and his long-term future, where do you stand on that? Because I stand on, if you do that to a kid and it messes with his long-term future, a 5-star like Harold Perkins, you're picking up a bad rap, in my opinion. You want to be saying, hey, look, we can coach you and develop you into what you need to be. Because I think so many LSU fans just say, who cares about the NFL? He's at LSU. Put him on the edge and let him just blitz on every play. That's not what's best for Harold Perkins' future. And in recruiting, you're not just recruiting kids for now, you're recruiting
Right.
them for their life, what their NFL career is going to be. So I'll let you speak to it as a former player. I'm in the camp that thinks that if you're using Harold Perkins and just saying, go just run after the football every time, you're doing him a disservice.
Yeah, so just first and foremost, definitely didn't play college ball and didn't play much high school. I quit early, so just want that.
You
And
played
you know
more
what's
than
funny?
me. You played more than me.
And you know the funny part about it is, like, especially when I was going to Auburn, I had a pretty good build, and that was the first thing. They was like, "Hey, man, and I stayed in the athletic dorm, so that was kind of how some of that got out." But I will say, is I've been around the game a long time, and definitely have a great relationship with coaches. And what I will say to that point is this: Harold Perkins is a special athlete that you have to find a way to help yourself with him. Now, in times where you could look at a guy like I saw Georgia last year, former 5-star Xavier Sword. What they would do
Mm-hmm.
with him was that the first 2 downs, they would stand him up. Third down, they would move him to a pass rush situation. Right now, what they're doing with Jalen Walker is when they need him to stand up, he stands up. But when they need him to go get the passer, he goes gets the passer. He goes to get the passer. Now, they're built a little bit differently. And I think that with Perkins, he's such a dynamic player that you have to find packages to showcase his pass rush ability. But you don't do that at the detriment of his NFL prospects. So I think that if you can find that marriage where he's a stand-up guy, you have a package where he goes to put his hands in the dirt every now and then. Not all the time, but he's a guy. When you look at his pass rush percentage, I don't have the exact PFF stats, but I can bet you they're better than the average person when it comes to rushing the passer. So you don't have to have as large of a sample size as you do with a guy who's trying to make it as a defensive end, as you do with the guy that you want to see if he has linebacker. You want a true linebacker with pass rush traits, and I think that's what he is, and I think that's what's going to get him to that first round selection that he wants to be. Because when you look at all the off-ball linebackers in the country, nobody can rush the passer that like Harold Perkins. Barrett Carter, Stutzman, Smile Munden, you name it. Nobody rushes the passer like him. Now, do they have more natural linebacker instincts? Possibly, but when you're an NFL team, you want to do two things. You want to be able to go get the passer defensively. You want to go get the passer, and you want to cover the receiver. He can do both. Right
He's a
now,
very good coverage guy. People forget that.
yeah, man, he can do both. So I think, and that's why it's always intriguing to see what the flavor of the week is with Harold Perkins, because it's like, I tell you, I'm going to give you a Lamborghini, but the only way you can keep it is if you only drive at 60 miles an hour.
Right now, it's going 20 miles an hour. He had 2 tackles, neither of them solo versus Nichols.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So how much longer are you going to just before you just, I'm going to floor at this game? And that's why I kind of continually to check in to see one game. I think they're going to figure out, you know what, we've given you enough film. We need to win this game. Go get them. And I think that's going to be one of those things. That's going to be an exciting thing for not just me as a college football fan, but for NFL scouts, because they can say what they want to say about projections all they want to. At the end of the day, he's going up against the best tackles in the country in practice. So it's not like he's just making sacks against the sisters or the poor. If he's doing it on the field, I'm pretty sure he's doing it in practice. So I think there's going to be a healthy balance to find out a way for him to get home to the quarterback. But yeah, I also am a fan of what he does in pass coverage and run support. I think he's a really complete linebacker.
Look, here's one thing to watch too with him being at linebacker. Jacobian Guillory, their vet DT, national powerlifting champ in high school. Brian Kelly said before the year, look, you could look up at the end of the year and he has no sacks, no stats, no tackles, no anything, but he might have been the most valuable piece you had because he can eat up 2 guys at once, which frees up your blitzing linebacker, who's Harold Perkins, which frees up some other guys, playing on the defensive line. I'm very curious what the fall off is from Guillory to whomever it is that's playing that position, because if Perkins wasn't getting home with Guillory there, then maybe you're probably not getting home more often now with a backup there. And how does that kind of shift up what LSU does defensively? But I'm with you. There will be a point this year where on Saturday, y'all turn on the TV and the highlights are running from games. And then you're like, oh, there's the Harold Perkins that everybody knew coming out of high school and knew as a freshman. Here's what's wilder. He was all world as a freshman. his stats last year, when everyone said he disappeared, were identical, Dukes, identical, the exact same stats as a freshman, but it was just at a different position, and it made it seem like he didn't pop as much. And now you started out this year and just haven't seen any production. So I think we're waiting on that breakout game, and then maybe Harold settles in and feels like, okay, I'm comfortable, and now I'm making more plays.
And I think sometimes as a fan, you got to take the ESPN factor out of it. See, last year the ESPN factor was with Jaden Daniels, so they're not digging into the deep parts of the game to go find out what he's doing well. They just need the pop plays. So yeah, you may have had more of those. Like when he took over that game in his freshman year, it's like yeah, everything was popping. He single-handedly took over a game. Now he's ingrained in our hearts. Oh my God, the savior of LSU football on defense. We've never seen anything like it. It was almost Honey Badger-esque the way he was covered that freshman year. Then the sophomore year, he's doing more things that endear him to the NFL scouts, and he's not getting the same amount of coverage. And now they're just shifting the cameras to Jaden Daniels, who goes for on a Heisman campaign. But he has the same stats. And I think it's so important that you said that. For example, AJ Terrell is probably the second or the third highest paid cornerback in the NFL. He didn't have an interception last year, but that has no bearing on what he done, what he meant to the Falcons secondary and their scheme as a whole. So I think those points that you're bringing up are very valid. Shea Dixon, my man, before we get out of here, last thing, I need a prediction for South Carolina.
They're a touchdown favorite. I think that if South Carolina threw the football a bit better than they have, that they'd have a chance. They would pull this off, perhaps. I think that LSU is dialed in enough. LSU has a better team than South Carolina. They do, even with deficiencies, injuries. They've got a better team. I think that LSU goes on the road and gets this win because I think that they can't afford not to. That's just where LSU's at a different point right now in the program with Kelly and Beamer of. For LSU, the expectations are that you win this game, not that you might pull an upset against LSU. And if you do, great, Beamer. But if not, we don't have the horses to run with them. That's not LSU. LSU cannot go to South Carolina and lose a football game. So, like I said, I think they're glad this one's at 11 a.m. and not at 7 and, nighttime with a packed stadium.
All right, man. Shea, thank you. Where can everybody find you on social media and follow your work?
Yeah, Shea Dixon on Twitter, but then on the Bengal Tiger. That's where we're hanging out on the boards every day, writing every day about this top 3 recruiting class and being able to cover the number 1 player in the country and Bryce Underwood, who's coming in, and obviously covering this LSU team that Dukes 5 years in a row they lost the opener, 0-5 in openers. Not the LSU standard. Can they stay hot like they did the past 2 years? Reel off a bunch of wins here. That starts this weekend. SEC game number 1 for LSU. Game number 2 for South Carolina. Must win.
We'll all be tuned in. See you soon, Shea.
All right, Dukes.
I'm here live with Harry Berry, the father of 5-star running back and LSU commit Harlem Berry here on the 5-Star Flex. Harry, what's going on, big dog?
Oh, not a lot, Dukes, bro. How are you?
Man, I'm good, man. Excited to have you on. LSU is 1-1, coming off a big victory over Nicholls State. So they took an L in the first one, but it was a really close game, and I'm sure that you guys saw some things that were some positives. What did you take away from the first game when you saw LSU play that says, you know what, I think Harlem's going to fit in real well there?
Well, John Emery had a good game. Unfortunately, he came back, the next week and tore his ACL in practice, but he showed a lot of production in the running game. And the plays that Coach Sloan called,
right,
I could see Harlem fitting in that offense. And that's that's basically the conversation that we had, during the recruiting process. The things that he was going to do to fit Harlem in this offense, not just from a running back standpoint, but an all-purpose standpoint.
No, for sure. So Harlem is one of those players that basically can go to any school in the country he wants to. He shut down his recruitment early and ain't stepped foot on another campus. What was it about LSU that made Harlem and you yourself as his guide and you guys' family, what made you as a family kind of to say LSU was the place and want to stick to it the way that you guys have?
Well, he was locked in with LSU. Frank did a good job recruiting him. We was impressed with everything they had to offer, the university as a whole, from the educational side all the way to the athletic side. And it was where he wanted to go. He always, from Leonard being a big fan of Leonard, he always had aspirations of going to LSU. I'm a fan of LSU, being from Louisiana, so that wasn't a hard decision for me to to agree with him. So those are the things that kind of kept us locked in with it. And then the environment, for as the coaching staff and everything surrounding the football process was locked in.
When it comes to being a father, what role did you play in Harlem's decision, and how can you feel, and how do you feel about it on the back end of it?
Well, I just basically told him, to take his time, make a choice in a decision that he was going to live with, that, something that he wanted to do. And, just like any other decision in life, I told him, just be patient. And if it's for you, it's for you. It's going to happen, Don't let anything persuade you from something that you want to do.
Yeah. Who was the first person on the staff that you guys let know that Harlem was coming?
Frank, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They say Frank is the guy too now.
Yeah. Me and Frank went to school together, so our conversations were, they were intense. It was heated. We went back and forth. From a clowning perspective, because we went to school, so we clowned a lot. But I just explained to him that I'm gonna look for him to do right by my son, which I know he will.
No, absolutely. With Coach Kelly, what was his reaction when he found out?
Well, Coach Kelly was excited.
Yeah.
Of course, that with Harlem being ranked where he's at, in his position, that did a lot for the recruitment and for his recruiting class, and just to have a kid as humble as Harlem is, hardworking and dedicated to his craft, to join his team. That did a lot for him.
Two of the cornerstones of this recruiting class are Harlem and Bryce Underwood. Talk about the relationship between the Berries and the Underwoods.
The relationship is tight. Me and Coach J, we had a conversation before Bryce made his decision, and he just basically wanted to know, what my thoughts were, and was that we locked in with LSU. From that point on, our relationship, it grew. Harlem and Bryce, they got a great relationship. They communicate all the time, and it's good to see that them establish that type of chemistry early on before they even set foot on campus. Coach J, a great man, great individual, good father, all the qualities that I look for within myself, I see it in him. So that made the bond like fall in place automatically.
As a father, when did you recognize that Harlem was going to do great things as your child?
I'm gonna be honest with you. When Harlem was 3, I think. My wife asked me, it was Christmas. She said, "What you gonna get? What we doing for Christmas for him?" I said, "Man, I'm gonna get a soccer ball, soccer goal, basketball goal, football equipment. He gonna play some type of sports, right?"
Right.
So he, a friend of mine was coaching Pop Warner. He made 4. He told me, bring him out there. Wanted to see if how would he, take to the contact and football. And when he went out there, it was automatic.
Wow.
They had the little tackling drill where you jump up, make the tackle.
Right.
Yeah, he was with it. Yeah.
So the word is that you were a pretty good hooper back in your day.
I used to do a little something,
Yeah, I had to do a little digging.
Yeah, I used to do a little something.
So how did you feel about it when Harlem took the football? Because a lot of times dads want to see the kid go in their same exact footsteps. Did you ever kind of push the basketball on Harlem and then he'd be like, "Nah, give me that football"? or were you just a natural, just like, man, he's so natural at football, I'm gonna let him do what he want to do?
I'm gonna be honest with you. The school that he attends now, they recruited him to play basketball.
Oh wow.
They recruited him to play basketball. In his first year, I think he was in the 8th grade. He came to us and he was like, "Dad, I want to play football." And I said, "Let me talk to your mom. See what she talks. Know how that's gonna go." I said, "Let me get in her ear for a second."
Right.
So he agreed, and man, the first play from scrimmage, he housed him.
Wow.
His first play from scrimmage, he housed him. So
Man.
it came to the point where we had to have a conversation because I was like, I'm not trying to make you make a decision, but you got to make a decision because if you want to play football, then that's going to eliminate me spending the money with the AAU basketball and all that. We're going to focus on football. Or if you want to play basketball, we're going to focus on basketball. So whatever sport that you kind of locked in, let me know, and that's where we're going to go. He wanted to play football. So I scratched the AAU and it went to 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, when it comes to when you have kids, you understand how much they can take if you're an involved father. What was it about Harlem that let you know that you could give him this set of circumstances and that you trusted him to make a good decision?
Harlem's always been a humble kid. He's always listened. Throughout whatever conversation that we indulge in, he'll sit and listen to me. He may not respond right then and there. And, as a parent, you look for that response from your kid.
Right.
Just to get some reassurance that they understand what you're talking about, right? But it will be situations where he may not say nothing, but then it'll be something within his actions that I see that showed me that he's paying attention to what I was saying. And that's just his demeanor.
Yeah.
That's just his demeanor.
As a father, a lot of times when we see our sons be successful, we talk about the athleticism. Oh, he got this from me. But as a man, can you talk about a trait that Harlem may have gotten from you that's off of the field?
Definitely the humbleness and having a great understanding. And that came to me from my father.
Okay.
Now I passed it on. I pass it on to all my kids. You have to be humble and you have to have an understanding. Be quick to listen, and slow to speak. That you could understand was everything that's going on around you. Because if you talking, then you missing something. But if you listening, you'll be able to understand so that you can answer, or so you can make the right answer and not make the wrong answer.
What does a successful season as a true freshman look like for Harlem at LSU to you as a father?
A successful season? 800 yards rushing.
Okay. That's very fair.
Yeah, 400 yards as a successful freshman, 400 yards receiving, 800 yards rushing.
That's so fair because you could have easily said Heisman Trophy, right? Because this guy, man, Harlem got the pedigree. But I like the way that you are tempering the expectations because a lot of guys, when they have a son that's highly ranked as yours, it's like, oh, we going to the Heisman. That's very fair. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, because it's about the expectations that you put on them, especially with that transition. You know what I'm saying? Transitioning from high school to college. You transitioning from a situation where you pretty much get all the touches. You know what I'm saying? To where the ball gonna be spread around more.
Right.
So you have to have that understanding going into that. So, that's how I came up with that answer. 800 yards at a freshman is nice. In a situation where it may be two other backs,
right?
So yeah, that's a nice little goal for him.
I like that.
Yeah.
Tell me your proudest moment as a father that doesn't involve football.
my proudest moment as a father
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't
Without ball.
what that doesn't involve football.
Yep.
He accepted. Well, that involved football. I'm about to say he accepted an award when he graduated from middle school.
Mm-hmm.
In the speech that he gave,
Yeah.
thanking me and his mother for everything that we've done for him in his life and helping him to get that far. And it's just middle school.
Right.
So to have that mindset to look back on, well, man, I was able to get this far with my parents. That I was proud. That made me a proud father.
Man, I love that, Harry. All right, before we get out of here, give me a message to give to the LSU fans about what they're getting in your son, Harlem Berry.
You're getting a diehard LSU fan first and foremost.
Okay.
You're getting a player that's gonna give you his all. He gonna leave it on the field every time he touch the field, and he gonna do everything in his power to make the team successful.
Man.
That's what you're getting.
Harry, man, I appreciate it. We got to do this again a little bit later in the season. We'll do a little update.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm always open for you, Dukes, my man.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man. Much love, fam.
All right, thank you, bro.
All right.